Beauty can appear almost anywhere. In a landscape, on a face, in a painting, in a piece of architecture that is impossible to look away from, in the stars scattered across the night sky, or simply in a brief moment when sunlight reflects off an empty bottle. But beauty is not a physical substance hidden inside those things. You cannot weigh it and you cannot remove it from an object. It exists in our minds as a pleasant response to color, shape, structure, or proportion. And that response existed long before museums, fashion, or modern design. Humans have been experiencing beauty for millions of years. Even some of the earliest tools were shaped with surprising care. Early humans did not simply make them sharp enough or strong enough to use. They also trimmed them into balanced, symmetrical forms, sometimes resembling teardrops. Researchers have tried to find a clear, practical benefit that would explain why people spent extra time creating those shapes, but no convincing functional explanation has been found. Perhaps the simplest explanation is also the most human one. They thought those tools looked better. Even prehistoric humans may have looked at two tools that worked equally well and thought, this one looks nicer. Of course, what people consider beautiful has never remained completely fixed. Standards change. Styles appear and disappear. Something admired in one era may look strange in another. But beneath those constantly shifting preferences, certain patterns keep returning. Symmetry, fractal patterns, the golden ratio. They appear again and again in the art and architecture of different cultures, from the earliest periods of human history to the present day. That does not mean everyone agrees on everything that should be called beautiful, but it does suggest that some visual patterns may run deeper than temporary trends. And those patterns did not begin in galleries. They were already everywhere in nature. Fractal-like structures appear in snail shells, flower heads, waves, and clouds. Recognizing patterns like these was once more than an interesting mental activity. It helped humans understand the environment around them. Do those clouds mean rain is coming? Is that water safe to cross? Can this be eaten? Symmetry also carried information. Healthy stems, leaves, flowers, and trees often grow in balanced forms. A deer with large antlers could provide a valuable source of nutritious meat. A symmetrical face was more likely to belong to someone healthy and capable of reproduction. These signals were never absolute guarantees. Something symmetrical was not automatically safe, healthy, or useful. But symmetry could serve as a quick signal. Because balanced forms appear so frequently throughout plants and animals, they became extremely familiar to the human brain. Recognizing them may have helped our ancestors assess their surroundings more quickly and react when something seemed unusual. And when the brain recognized signals connected to safety or nutrition, its reward center could produce a pleasant feeling. That may be one of the origins of beauty. Pattern recognition once helped humans survive. The reward system made useful signals feel good. Over time, that response may have developed far beyond its original purpose. Today, we do not look at a painting and wonder whether it can predict rain or lead us to food. But our attraction to organized patterns remains. It seems to be deeply embedded in the way the human brain works. In one experiment, patients with Alzheimer's disease were asked to rank several paintings from most beautiful to least beautiful. 2 weeks later, the researchers repeated the task. By then, the patients had forgotten the paintings, yet they still arranged them in nearly the same order as before. Their memories of the paintings had faded, while their judgments of beauty remained remarkably stable. However, that result alone does not prove that humans share a common standard of beauty. It may simply show that each person retains their own individual preferences. So, other experiments asked a different question. Can people recognize artistic structure created deliberately, even when they cannot explain exactly what they are seeing? Participants were shown original abstract works by Mondrian and Pollock alongside imitations. The original works had been created according to strict visual rules, including organized patterns such as fractal structures. The imitations did not follow the same rules. Most participants correctly selected the original works. This happened with both artists, even though their styles were very different. In another experiment, abstract artworks were mixed with similar images created by children or animals. Once again, participants tended to recognize the works whose structures had been carefully planned rather than formed randomly. People may struggle to give a precise definition of beauty, but somehow, we can often recognize organization when we see it. The human environment, however, has changed dramatically. We no longer spend every day moving through nature in search of food and safety. Humans have built their own surroundings. The objects we use, the clothes we wear, the buildings we enter, and the cities we move through. And while creating that world, beauty has often been pushed aside in favor of cost, efficiency, and function. The result is rows of concrete housing blocks, ugly subway stations, neglected public buildings, sprawling shopping centers, and one standardized box standing beside another standardized box. They may be efficient, but they are rarely memorable. The problem is that the human brain does not stop searching for meaningful visual information simply because the environment has become artificial. Eye-tracking studies show that people tend to focus on architectural details and ornament. When faced with large blank walls, their eyes move across them very quickly. We look for variation, structure, something worth examining. And dull surroundings do more than simply fail to hold our attention. Experiments using skin sensors have shown that large, monotonous facades make people feel bored and uncomfortable. That boredom has been linked to increased heart rate and higher stress levels. So, an ugly environment may not be emotionally neutral. It can produce a measurable negative response. And the opposite also seems to be true. Over recent decades, a growing number of studies have linked visually pleasing surroundings to improvements in overall well-being, behavior, cognitive function, and mood. A hospital study conducted in 2017 used observations and patient interviews to examine factors that affected recovery. Visual art placed in shared lounge areas made patients feel more comfortable and more positive about their hospital stay. Another study compared patients recovering in two hospital wards. One was old and unattractive. The other had recently been renovated. Patients staying in the renovated ward required less pain medication. On average, they were also discharged 2 days earlier than patients recovering in the older ward. Those results suggest that the environment in which treatment takes place may influence both how patients feel and how they recover. And the influence of beauty is not limited to hospitals. One study examining the factors that affect adult happiness considered familiar influences such as good health and a harmonious family life. But another factor also mattered: how beautiful people considered the city in which they lived. Remarkably, in that study, the beauty of the city ranked even higher than cleanliness or safety. That does not make safety any less important. It simply shows that the appearance of the place where we live may influence happiness more than we usually realize. For millions of years, the human brain has been shaped to process visual information and evaluate the surrounding environment. That system is still operating. We still notice patterns, balance, variety, and signs of meaningful structure. We still respond when our surroundings provide those things and when they do not. So, beauty may not simply be an unnecessary layer of decoration placed on top of something useful. It may satisfy a deep human need for meaningful information. And when we create a world that is fully functional but ignores how it looks and feels, we may be leaving out something the human mind was built to seek: